I began showing up as my high self because I just wanted more for myself. I didn't want to live life the way I was living life. Hi Luz, do y'all like the lighting? It's getting very much color graded. Okay. We're on our last episode of this series and we are talking about showing up as our highest self. This episode is the episode that y'all have been waiting for, showing up as your highest self. How that we already did the 2 intros in the episode before about how to release your identity. So if you have not watched those episodes, you need to, because that is how you understand what's going on here. You release the identity to be able to begin to prepare to show up as your new identity, and then show up as your new identity. And it's not even new because it is who you are all along. It is what you have in the core of yourself. We're just amplifying what you have at the core, which is a beautiful, loving, kind, understanding person, soul, because we are souls on this earth. We are the spiritual, the soul is manifesting in a physical body. First thing when it comes to showing up as our highest self, and you may ask, what is your highest self? You know what your highest self is. Don't ask me. I'm gonna put a definition here if you want to know what it is, but you at your core know what your highest self is. You know what they do, you know how they show up in the world, and you may not have given yourself the permission to really examine it, but you need to, because I'm sure you want to start showing up as a better person. The first thing we're going to do is give ourselves space to shift and evolve. When it comes to being our highest self, we are not boxed into one thing, because as our highest self, we release identity. There's nothing that we are inherently tied to. We are inherently worthy and we are inherently loving, beautiful human beings. You are love, but there's nothing that you're inherently tied to on this earth, because we're souls. So giving yourself that space to shift and try different things and show up as your best self is very imperative. The second thing to do to show up as your highest self is kind of piggyback off of the first, but try out different things and see what resonates with you. And this is really important because so many times we tell ourselves, oh, I don't do this kind of thing, or things have to be done the way they've always been done. But you can change the way things are done. You can change the things that you show up as. You can try multiple things. You can show up in new spaces and see how you feel. So I'm on my journey of becoming my highest self, I am trying myself out and seeing how my body feels, seeing how my soul feels and how my soul resonates with different spaces. And so maybe I'll go to a bar and see how I feel. Maybe I'll go to a dance class and see how my soul feels. Maybe I'll try a new routine and see how I feel. But basically that, I feel like what I'm listing is so materialistic, but try different things if you want to. And this might be a little bit of a controversy, but I'm learning that you can learn about other religions too. I'll share because this is a vulnerable space. Right now I'm on my spiritual journey and I'm still learning how to reconcile things with my background of Christianity, because that is a deep-rooted belief and I do believe in God. I 100% believe in God. But I'm learning so many things, and some things are contradicting things I learned, and I'm just learning how to bridge the gap between things. So I'm finding myself in different communities, and I'm being there's no cultural appropriation. I am just feeling out how I feel in these different communities and what resonates with you, because at the end of the day, you know what resonates with you. And give yourself the space to do that. As I walk into my highest self, I'm giving myself the space to try out different things and be in different spaces and see how it feels, because you will never know until you try it out. The next really important thing about showing up as your highest self is bridging that gap between who you used to be and who your highest self is, so that you can get there, but we can get there smoothly. And this is a concept that I think about a lot of the time. So I've spoken to my friends about something called alter ego work. And basically with the alter ego, you can create who you want to be, and this can be your highest self or it can be anything else. But basically with the alter ego, you step up as your alter ego because you need them in the moment, and you're able to get things done when you're living in that reality. But you at your core, you call it an alter ego because you think it is different from you. And so bridging that gap between what you think is different from you and who you are. Y'all, my potatoes are going. Give me 1 second. we were getting into the message. I just took my potatoes out of the oven. Yeah. So what was I talking about? We like to be in our most authentic self because your highest self likes to feel authentic. So how do you bridge that gap? So anyways, before bridging that gap, you can decide to do alter ego work. If you do the alter ego work, you've got to decide how to bridge your alter ego to your ego, which is not my favorite thing to do because it's a little bit harder. You're able to bypass the work in the beginning to show up as that person to get things done. But when you are sitting down and all is said and done and you want to return back to your authentic self, you have to find ways to bridge both things so that you have the results that your alter ego is getting. But anyways, another way to do this is by showing up as your highest self. So it's not your alter ego because it is yourself, but it is your highest self and is who you want to be. So you're working to get there. So you're bridging that gap and realizing that your highest self isn't just it's not like a fairy tale made up mermaid. It is who you are. It's just who the good parts amplified. And I don't want to toxic positivity your way into highest self because the only way you get into highest self, there's no bypassing. You cannot spiritual or emotionally bypass anything to become your highest self. You have to work through those things that are hindering you from becoming your highest self because you know them. Like I said, people like to act like they don't know what's going on or they don't know what they need to do, but you know. If you are following your intuition and listening, if you clear out the noise for a second, you can hear yourself screaming what exactly you need to do to move forward. And so to bridge that gap to become your highest self, you got to do the work. And a lot of that comes with healing. So I'm actually in the next episode going to talk about what I learned from the How We Heal book. But let's finish up this episode. Instead of telling y'all what to do, let me just share my story because I have the most fun sharing my story and I think y'all might resonate with this. Showing up as your highest self is supposed to be fun. I began showing up as my highest self because I just wanted more for myself. I didn't want to live life the way I was living life. And there was nothing else I could do but show up as my highest self. I just wanted to be who I was before, but then I realized that you can't be who you are before because you've gone through things that make you who you are now. And so I guess what I wanted to do was just become a better person. And I loved the concept of showing up as my highest self because we get a lot done. We get to kind of live our purpose in this world and help other people live their purpose too in this world. I love that it starts with the small things. It's really, really enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable process, how I found it. And yes, you have the hard work, but it's kind of sweet going through the hard work because when we're never done healing. We never finish healing. Healing is a continuous process. It is not linear. That's the first fact that you need to understand. But it's really enjoyable working through these things, especially when you have people around you who are also working through them. I found that me showing up as my highest self and working through childhood things, my mom began to see childhood things that happened to her and why she reacts the way she does. So just generational healing is the most beautiful thing in the world to me, and it makes my heart so warm. So when you show up and you do certain things, you give other people permission to do the same, and I love it. I love it here. I love it here so much. Anyways, and for me, I started off with just showing up, having the ability to show up, having the ability to feel my emotions. My highest self looks a lot like working through things and being kind to people. I feel as though I can do a lot. The only way I'm able to show up for people is if I show up for myself. But showing up for people makes me so happy. So knowing that whatever I do, I think at the end of the day, I will always want to give back to people and serve people in some way, shape, or form. And that's what makes me happy. But realizing that I have to work on myself. And you don't need to be 100% before you do anything. You don't get me wrong. You don't need to be 100%. But knowing that while I'm working on myself, I can also help others, because by others healing helps me, that means by me healing helps others. And so just wanting to show up for yourself, wanting to show up for your community, wanting to show up for your friends and the people around you, wanting to show up for your family, it is the most beautiful thing in the world, and I absolutely adore it. So it starts with your small daily habits. So I started with gratitude journaling, waking up and seeing the sunrise, going to the gym, eating healthy, nourishing my body. All these things I knew my higher self would do and make me feel like my best self was really important to me. Also, podcasts. There are two big podcasts I really want to recommend because I'm obsessed with them right now. The podcasts are the Highest Self podcast by Sahara Rose. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. And the second one is the Higher Self podcast by Danny Morell. The first one of my really good friends recommended them to me, and I just adore that individual. Amazing. The second one, I started finding Danny through TikTok, and then somehow when I was going to say her Rose's podcast, Listen in the Morning, I stumbled upon an episode by Danny that I really resonated with, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep listening to this. Anyways, y'all, we are coming to the end of this episode because it's getting a little bit long, and I love y'all. Next week, we are talking about How We Heal by Alex L. I love that book. I just finished it. It's so good. And stay safe. I love you. You are doing so good. You are showing up as your highest self. It is an enjoyable process. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. We talk about all these things and more. I love you. You're doing so good, okay? Bye, baby.